Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is the Split Peak Soup Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Carney, and today I'm with a good friend of mine, a talented surfer, a videographer, and he goes by the name of Kyle Buthman. Kyle, how are you today?
Doing good, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's been a long time coming. I've been looking forward to having you on the show and just getting to life and talking about what's been going on with you. How have you been lately?
Been good, man. Same old thing. A lot of surfing and some film projects, some traveling. So yeah, been good. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty well, getting in the water when I can and just working on the podcast thing, trying to blow up this empire here at Split Peak Soup.
The Empire.
Yeah. And I think this is the episode that's going to change everything.
Everything's going to be changed.
Turn my luck around. Sick. Well, so this has been a pretty phenomenal summer as far as, surfing goes in Santa Cruz. Where have you been getting out there?
I've been all over the place. I mean, for here in Santa Cruz, it's been probably the best summer I can remember. Like, we had waves for... I was home for 3 weeks of it when it was straight firing. And then I went to Chile after that, and it was pumping down there, which I know it was pumping here again. And then I was in Mexico after that, and it was firing down there and also firing here. So basically, South Pacific has been on a heater, and there's been nonstop swells. It stopped for about a week, and now we're back on. We had like a crazy weird hurricane swell the last couple of days, and now there's more southwest swell that's just about to hit us. So it's like a lot of surfing. It's been good. It's been fun.
Yeah, do you think this is due to that El Nino phenomenon that we've been hearing all about?
Honestly, I don't know. There's so much hype around this El Nino. Yeah, it could be, but I'm unsure.
Yeah, I think, some people are kind of more equipped to dissect the weather patterns and all that stuff. And kind of as knucklehead surfers, I think we're just kind of playing catch up and looking at Surfline, talking to people, looking at buoys. And if it comes, it comes. And to me, it doesn't really, matter how it's coming or why. But if it's coming, I'm going to be stoked.
Well, it's funny because I remember like being a kid and there was like a surf report you'd call as like Santa Cruz Surf Shop or O'Neill Surf Shop. I think Elfin did it at O'Neill. Someone else did it at Santa Cruz. There was no surf line. We'd wake up, we'd dial this number. I think it was like 475 barrel or something like that. And they'd be like, hey, this is Elfin with your surf report. Today's 2 to 3 feet. You're like, what does that even mean? Is that Californian? Is that Hawaiian? Like, what? And then you go down, like eventually you'd always end up going down to check it. And that's when you knew if there was waves or not. So like so many days as a kid, I remember waking up on the weekend, like riding my bike down on the surf, and you're like, it's going to be a good weekend. It's pumping. But like you literally had no idea. And at that point, I'm sure there was already swell forecasting, but I was unaware of it. You just woke up and went and checked the surf. That's what you did. So like you never knew it was coming. And then same thing, like if you did a surf trip, you just planned a surf trip and went. So it's changed so much, like now knowing in advance, like, oh, it's going to be firing on Tuesday. And I feel like in the last couple of years too, it's really become like super accurate where they have like the right day that it's coming, the right size. You actually pretty much know what it's going to be like, the wind, everything. Like obviously there's still those days you get surprised, but a lot of times you kind of have a pretty good idea what the surf's going to be like, and you can almost like rearrange your schedule to be there, which is good and bad. You don't get that like random excitement of just showing up at the beach and you're like, we're on. But yeah, it's cool. Definitely you can like plan a trip around a swell, shoot down to wherever you're going and score. So it's changed a lot. But with that, obviously, a lot of other people can do that too. Where you used to show up somewhere and like if other people were there, they're going to score too. But if they're not, they have no idea kind of thing. So I think like we've seen a lot change in the last however many years.
Yeah. And two, especially now that your profession kind of revolves around scoring waves, right? You want to kind of know what's going to be good to invest your time, your resources, who to call on that day. So you got to be a little bit more invested than those years past now that you're like trying to like, be in touch with everybody and make sure everyone's on the same plane and stuff.
Yeah, it depends. Like I shoot all kinds of stuff, not just surfing. So a lot of it has nothing to do with the ocean and the waves, but then at the same time, a lot of it does. And I've been lucky enough, like this year, got to do a trip with Surfline where they kind of like forecasted the whole thing for us, and we actually had like a 21-day window where we could go anywhere in the world in that 21 days, and the goal was to just find the best waves possible. And we ended up going somewhere in Africa, but it was funny because even with Surfline backing us and like the main forecasters doing all the forecasting, we were on calls with them literally like every other day, and then be like, oh, we're looking at Tahiti this week, and then we almost went to P Pass. We almost went to like 3 or 4 different places, and then we ended up pulling the trigger on Africa, and we scored. But it was still one of those places where like we didn't really know anything about it, and neither did they. So it was still like we were hoping. And we did end up scoring, but it was super tricky. It was a really tricky wave. But I was with the Coffin brothers. They got some insane waves. And it all worked out in the end, but it was not like a guarantee score, even with Surfline behind us, just because we weren't going to. I mean, say like a reef break. Like if you're going to Chopo, you kind of know the wind's going to be good, the swell's going to be good, the angle's good, like it's going to be good. We went to a sand point. So sand point, you're like, hopefully the sand's good. And in the 3 days we were there, we watched the sand do different things every single day. And it was actually like really good the first day. The middle day of the swell was kind of really difficult, not too many good waves. And then the third day, the sandbars were groomed and perfect, but the swell was dropping. But it was really good when they came. You just had to wait for it. So it was pretty cool, and cool to have like Surfline do that. I actually had been on another trip with those guys for Maps to Nowhere the year before, and I wouldn't say we got skunked, but we didn't get what we were hoping to get. We still got good waves, but it was a small wave. We went to a really cold water location, which I think the colder you go, generally the harder to score. Obviously you can score hard, but there's so many elements you're dealing with when you're going to somewhere really cold, and like, yeah, there was a lot of elements, wind and snow and weather and all that. So
Yeah, and how important does that become to have somebody maybe like on the ground? Say you're going to Africa, and I mean, it might not even be a place where there's like an established surf culture. Like, how do you find someone to give you like a little bit of insider knowledge? Like, okay, the sand's kind of doing this, because those are the things that I think you're gonna want to have some idea of what's going before you shoot over there.
for sure. And we did get in touch with someone over there, and he gave us a little bit of information, but it still wasn't like, we still had no idea. And then he kind of picked us up from the airport, and then we never saw him again. That was, I think, and then he dropped us off. But like the whole rest of the time, we didn't see him. So we were pretty much on our own when we got over there. But it worked out.
Is that by design? Is that like the person who's like your point man doesn't want to be like seen or associated with this like film crew that rocks up a little bit?
No, I don't think at all. I think he just like was doing his own thing. He had his own things going on, and somehow he got linked up with us, and he did help us get a car. Like we needed a 4-wheel drive truck, and they didn't have like a regular rental car place that rented 4-wheel drive, so he kind of sourced that for us and then did his thing. That was that.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I think we can kind of get into more about your film career and where it's at now, and in terms of, time and space. But let's talk a little bit about how you got into filming, because you started out just kind of like most of us young surfers here in Santa Cruz, trying to do the sponsored surfer thing, go on trips, maybe do some competing and stuff, getting those sponsorships early. And then how did that evolve into you getting behind the camera?
It was all surfing. You were there. We were surfing every day, and that was like all we wanted to do. And I was always super into surf videos. Obviously, like the big surf videos at the time were like Taylor Steele, like Loose Change and things like that. That was probably my favorite movie. But then some of my other favorite movies were local films made by like super early days Tony Roberts, but I was more the generation after that of like Josh Pomer and even Graham Nash. So probably my favorite local film ever made was State of Emergency, which was Graham Nash film. And I think that came out when I was in like going into high school, like coming out of 8th grade, something like that. We watched that movie all day of summer. Like the waves were flat and we were just like psyching, watching State of Emergency. And like at that time, probably Rat Boy was probably my favorite surfer. Probably like most people in town, it was like Rat Boy was so sick.
Yeah, he had everything. The carbs. He could jump on a longboard, style his way through. A+ clips of doing that, and then goes on to his little ramp quest, and he's just punting. And yeah, what a talented guy. And for guys like you and I, we studied those movies religiously, all the Josh Pomer movies, and what a good way to get psyched to go surf, to watch your heroes, your hometown heroes, go out there and perform like that.
That's what it was for me. It was like more exciting, I think, to watch guys surfing the waves that we surfed. Because if you tune into some of these other films, like the Taylor Steele films, it's like you're watching insane waves and Indo stuff, but the reality of like me going to Indo that time was not going to happen. So it was like, why watch, Lance is Right to get psyched when I could watch Steamer Lane and then actually go surf it? So that was like what it was for me. And it was like that generation of guys, Rat Boy, Flea, Pete Mel, Barney, the list goes on and on, was like such a gnarly group of guys. But at the same time, like I feel like every generation of Santa Cruz surfers there's been so many good surfers in every generation. So for our generation, it was like, who's going to like make a film of this? You know what I mean? And then I ended up getting hurt. I was 14 years old. I was surfing sewers. In between heats, I had a contest going on at the point. And I had like made the final, but the waves were pumping. So I was like, I'm going surfing at sewers in between heats. And of course I went out there. Someone ran over my foot, cut through my Achilles tendon. Next thing, I'm in the hospital telling the guy, like, you got to stitch me back up. I'm going to go surf my final. He's like, no, you're not. Like, you cut your Achilles, like, you're out of the water for 6 months. I was like, no. Like, at that time, that's like eternity, you know what I mean? But right before that, my dad had got a little handy cam, and he'd started filming me surfing. So I just grabbed the handy cam and started filming all my friends. And, like, we didn't have a computer at the time, nothing. But I didn't even use a tripod. I just grabbed this little handy cam, started filming all my friends. And then, like, I ended up, I was way faster than 6 months. I ended up healing in, like, 3.5, 4 months. But I had a ton of footage, like, literally 3 months straight of footage before then. And I was really wanting to make something, talk my parents into, like, I really need a computer so I can do this. And, like, they got this used computer that barely worked, but it had this editing software on it that I kind of just taught myself how to use. Never really figured out how to do it, but enough to get the clips in. And I made a movie called Tricks Are for Kids. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I did, definitely. Yeah.
That was sick. So that was like where it all started. And then I think from there I just got interested in it, like in film, and mostly just surf though, like surf film. And I was surfing for Quicksilver at the time, so I'd always take a camera with me. Every trip I did, I started going on trips, taking a camera, and whenever I wasn't surfing, I'd shoot some stuff. So like at the end of every trip, I'd always put together some sort of video, and eventually Quicksilver saw that and were like, oh, these are cool, like we should, do something. So they started like a blog on their website, and they'd put my videos up, which was cool, but like I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, cool. Like to me, it was still like surf, and like that was just fun. And then, yeah, like years later down the road, they hit me up like, oh, we need to do this promotional video for this contest we're going to run. Like, can you make it for us? Like, we'll pay you. And I was like, oh, really? You get paid for this? I'm like, okay. So I did it. I guess did a pretty good job. And then it was just went from there. It was like, but Quicksilver was my first client. I surfed for them as well, so it like became this deal where I could do both for a few years, which was pretty cool. But I did a lot of cool trips with Quick, and went to a lot of cool places. Made a surf video that was called No Agenda. I'm sure you could check it out on YouTube. And yeah, we did all kinds of stuff.
Where do you think your first like kind of like big trip with big names was too?
My first trip ever was to the North Shore to like film. Like I had gone every year to surf, pretty much. But then it was like, oh, now being there behind the camera was a different story. But yeah, I was at the pipeline house. That's when all the companies had houses right at pipeline. And it was like you were just at pipe every single day. We didn't have a car. So it was pretty much like all pipe. Maybe Rocky Point if you like walked all the way down there. But yeah, pretty much just pipe. And like at the time it was like Reef McIntosh was kind of like head of the house, and then Mark Healy would always swing by, and then all the younger guys. Balaram was already there. I think I shared a room with Balaram that first year. Tyler Newton. Yeah.
Cool. And do you remember any of the first instances where you were at a place to maybe surf and film where you had to film that day and you're like, fuck, like I would really prefer to be out there?
Honestly, like people ask me that all the time, and like I actually do. When you're actually getting clips, I enjoy shooting. You know what I mean? And like capturing that, because you kind of know you have something that's going to last longer than just that memory of that wave. Maybe that memory is going to last forever too, but like you have something a little more tangible than that memory.
Yeah.
Which was always like the idea that I was like, oh, cool. Like now I'm going to have something to edit. I'm going to have, So like I do enjoy filming, and like usually when the waves are firing, you're getting good clips too. So it's not like a huge deal. It depends, Obviously there's been certain days you're like, oh wow, it looks really good. Cause like it's funny, people are like, you have the raddest job like to surf. I'm like, wait, what? I surf like when I go on a trip, like I surf less than anyone. Like it's funny because all the other people, like if you have a producer or just anyone working for the brand that the trip is for, it's like they're literally there surfing all day long. And it's like I never even brought boards with me. Like if I surf, which usually doesn't happen, but if I do, it's like someone gives me a board and it's like, go get a couple waves, But for sure when it's firing, you're not out there. You're shooting. So it's, yeah, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah, it's like a different type of scoring.
It's a different type of scoring. And like I know, I'm still going to do my own trips and get my own waves too. So at the end of the day, it's all good. And like that trip this year in Africa, there was a pretty crazy wave we ended up at, and everyone's like, oh, like tell me you got some waves. I'm like, no, I never surfed. They're like, what? That must have been miserable. But I'm like, it wasn't really, because I actually ended up shooting a lot of water, which to me, like shooting water is just as fun as surfing in a lot of senses. It's like every tube those guys get, I'm in the barrel with them,
Yeah, you feel that energy and you're kind of caught up in all the elements. You're part of it.
100%.
And was there I'm sure it's got to be a huge learning curve. And at what point in your career did you like step away from the camera and step off of the sand and start kind of wading out into the water with those guys?
Oh, like in the water?
Yeah.
Pretty early, I feel like. I guess like I didn't have a housing and all that stuff, but I was interested. Like I wanted to shoot in the water, but I didn't have that stuff. And my friend Ryan Moss, who was like a huge reason why I actually learned how to shoot and edit as well. He like taught me basically almost everything at the time. He had a couple water housings. He was super into it already. And I was in Hawaii one year, and he had to go to Jaws or something for a swell to shoot it. And he's like, I need you to cover the eddy for me. The eddy was going to run at Waimea. He's like, I need you to cover the eddy for me. Like, I'll pay you or like whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, how about you give me your water housing set up? He's like, yep, no worries. So he gave me my first housing, and that's kind of like where it all started. I think my very first like swim was out at like North Swell Pipe, and I got sucked down like into back door and like just was so scared. And I was like, all right, this is kind of gnarly.
Yeah, tell me about like shooting water, because it's like I'm sure like the biggest thing is positioning.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes it so fun is like it's just like surfing, like you have to line yourself up perfectly, like you're only going to get the best wave if you're in the best spot. And same thing for getting the best shot. It's like you have to be in the perfect spot, which can be really difficult when you're dealing with currents and like all kinds of things, and just knowing where the server is going to end up and all that. So it's definitely like a challenge and a learning curve. And then you add in the like camera aspect of things, and it changes everything because you're getting pulled even harder by currents. Or like if you're swimming with a big heavy camera, it's harder to get from one place to another, especially really quick. So it really depends. But it can be super dangerous. Like you think about swimming with like a red housing, you got a housing that's the size of a mailbox. The thing weighs 30 pounds plus. And like, I should wear a helmet always. I wear one sometimes. I should start wearing it more. But yeah, like it's dangerous for sure, but it's super rewarding because, like I said, you get to be in every single barrel that everyone else is in too, and like then you get to go home and look at the shots and be like, oh, that's insane. Like, so it's pretty cool.
And I would imagine that, there's like almost like a sixth sense. A surfer has this like innate ability with experience and time to be in the position where you're almost doing like a calculation in your mind. You're like, okay, if I drop in at this angle, at this spot, I can tuck into this barrel, and I'm going to have to hold my line for this long and be in this right spot. And I'd imagine that, there's probably a similar feeling with shooting water, where you're kind of like, you're almost like, it's like an instinct kicks in where you just, it's like magic. You're not like thinking in your mind, you're not doing calculations, you're just like, you're in this spot, and you know that in 5 seconds that somebody's going to be this close to you.
Well, you're hoping.
You're hoping.
It depends. Like, it always is changing because it really depends on where you're swimming. It's like, if there's no current, it's pretty easy to hold your position, just sit in one place. But then the waves a lot of time moving around. So there's always like the variable of like, am I in the right spot? And there's tons of times where you are not in the right spot and you miss the main action that you're hoping to get. You know what I mean? And then when it lines up, you're stoked. And that's why it's special, I guess. If you were in the right spot every single time, then it'd just be like, oh, cool. There you go again. Perfect. Nailed it. But it's like hard to get there, hard for everything to line up. Like everything has to go perfectly to be right there. Sometimes you get the shot, but you're too far away or even too close. So it's just like, yeah.
A lot of elements.
A lot of elements coming together.
And how about like managing fatigue? Because your legs, like that's just, if you're holding a camera that's 30 pounds and you're just using flippers and trying to fight the current and get into the right spot, how long do you typically last out on a big heavy water day shooting from the water?
I mean, I'll usually shoot like until my battery's dead, which is usually like depending on what camera you're shooting on, but like both the cameras I shoot in the water, I'm usually like 2 hours.
Okay.
So if guys are serving that long, I'll usually do that 2 hours. And then it depends. Like I do remember a few years ago, I was shooting Stab in the Dark with Jack Robinson in Hawaii. And I had this camera at the time that had this like power off setting when you weren't shooting. And since I was only shooting one guy, I'd set it to like auto power off after a minute. And then the thing would just go to sleep. It was kind of like a curse and a blessing, but the camera would last all day. And he had like 10, 12 boards to try out. So I was swimming like 6, 7 hours a day. It was actually crazy. I'm like, I wish my battery would die. I'd be out there so many times like, die. And it wouldn't die, and I'd just be shooting all day long.
Well, that's pretty classic. And that's crazy. So yeah, talking about Stab in the Dark, and these are some pretty like big deal project in the world of surf. When did it kind of transition into like doing some work for Quicksilver, making your own videos, into like something where you're like, whoa, like this could be like a career for me?
I mean, yeah, like I said, like I didn't have any plans of like doing it as a career. It just kind of happened. And thanks to like the guys at Quicksilver at the time, like mainly Chad Wells was the guy who was like, hey, you're getting good at this. Like, why don't you shoot this stuff for us? Cool. Like, thank you, Chad. Like that was all kind of him. And yeah, like I said, it just happened. I wasn't like planning on it. Like at that time I was like, I'm going to be a pro surfer. You know what I mean? And then it just like changed, and stoked that it did in a way. Like it's been so cool.
Yeah, I think we all kind of, it doesn't matter how talented you are. There's your Bud Freitas's, your Noe Kalukakuis, all these guys who, you know, they're at the top rung in their time, and they have a career that can kind of last a certain amount of time, but even like Nat Young, it's like at some point it kind of like peters out. And how about you for your kind of professional surfing like aspirations? Was there a time where you kind of said like, well, shit, like I don't know if this is something that's gonna be paying off anymore?
I mean, honestly, the crazy thing I think is like when I was coming up, and you for that matter, it was like there was such thing as like a regional pro surfer who didn't need to be on the CT and didn't need to be like the gnarliest air guy in the world. Like it's crazy to think now to be a proper pro surfer, you pretty much have to be like a Noah Dean, who's not just like you used to be able to be a photo pro and get photos like doing a big flyaway. You know what I mean? And now it's all video, so it's like you got to be pulling 10-foot airs instead of just like sending them, which there's a big difference there. And then it seems like that kind of like regional pro has completely gone away. It's like you might get flowed some gear, but you're not going to be making money off surfing. You know what I mean? So it's got to be like now, being a kid coming up, like wanting to be a pro surfer, you have to have your goals like up here. Like I'm either going to be on the CT, I'm going that young program, or I'm going to be sending 10-foot airs to the flats and trying to pull them.
Definitely. And not only just that, but like working with certain entities that you have to be doing. If you want to be a free surfing pro these days, you're like, you have to be dialed in with the stab guys,
Yeah, for sure.
There's certain things, and they're not going to waste any pennies on you if you're not one of those guys who's, pulling that stuff.
Yeah, I think like at the time when like I was wanting to be a pro surfer, it was way more attainable. Like I knew I was never going to be on tour. I was never going to like do anything like that. But there was still this path of like, oh, you can get there. And like for me, and like at that time, there was, like I said, the regional pro surfer where companies were paying guys just as like the local pro almost. So like to make it to that level was like, all right, I've made it. And then it was pretty quickly after that like the economy was getting worse and like guys' contracts were getting pulled. And I actually saved mine because I was able to get some film stuff worked into it. So it was like a double dip deal, which was cool. But then pretty quickly after that, it turned into just all film, which I was fine with.
Yeah.
But that's how it was. Like if you look to the generations before us, there was like 20, 30 guys in Santa Cruz that were like pro surfers.
Right.
And now, like, how many people are getting paid to surf in Santa Cruz now? Like, I don't know, 3, 4? I don't really know, but
yeah,
that's what I would guess.
And it's not even like necessarily just straight surfing. You got guys like Noah who are doing modeling stuff.
For sure.
Leveraging that part. And
you gotta leverage something these days. I think you always kind of did, but especially now, it's like you have to have something else to offer other than just how good of an air you can do. It's like there's so many good surfers, like just in Santa Cruz there's so many good surfers, but then in the whole world, and like I think now you're compared more to the whole world because you have like every clip on Instagram like right after it happens. You're like, oh, look what so and so just did today,
And you are uniquely positioned to kind of extend that relationship with Quicksilver because around that time and like well before, like guys are getting clipped. That regional pro thing was just evaporating, and at least you got to like get flowed gear for a bit longer than a lot of the other guys when all that stuff started to kind of trail off. So that sounds like it kind of was worked out kind of good in your favor in that regard.
Yeah, it totally worked out. It was cool to just like, I don't know, at that time Quicksilver felt like I knew everyone at the company so well, and it felt like this relationship that was going to last so long. And then sure enough, like all of a sudden everyone was gone that I knew, and it was all new people, and then it just wasn't the same. You know what I mean? But like you get these eras inside of companies where you have like a really good relationship with everyone and everyone's so cool. It's like It's cool when it's like that.
Yeah, let's kind of touch a little bit too back about what you're talking about in Santa Cruz. We're positioned to be in a location where these guys, our heroes are constantly out there filming video parts, and we might be out there with them surfing. And to be surrounded by these guys who you grow up watching and like religiously, it's like kind of like a starstruck kind of moment. And a big influence in my life, my first surf shop sponsor was at Freeline, and the guy there was the king, was Peter Mel. And it was just, I'd be in there rinsing wetsuits or sweeping the back of the shop, and he'd come in with all his friends and just, he's throwing heckles and kind of doing that older brother type thing. And just to be like, I was like, whoa, it like felt like God walked into the room or something like that. And can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with Pete? And, I mean, obviously, you look at your surfing, you kind of modeled your style off of him and stuff, and it's just it bled through. And I know that you
Yeah.
guys became like really good friends, the
Yeah,
Mel
I
family.
obviously looked up to Pete like a ton. Um, First, that really happened. Like Pete is the one who ultimately got me sponsored by Quicksilver, but the first guy that kind of made it happen was Matt Lochner. Matt Lochner was kind of like, "Oh, Boothy's looking for a sponsor. Like, we got to get this guy a sponsor." And then he kind of like passed me off to Adam Replogle. And then Adam is the one who was friends with Pete and was like, "Oh, Pete, like, whatever." And then Pete ended up hooking me up with Quicksilver. And it was like, that was before his, like, obviously John was a baby. So it was like, yeah, I got to like do a ton of surf trips with Pete and like a bunch of cool stuff. Like he got me on Quicksilver, and then pretty soon after that, we were like traveling and going on trips together. I went to Hawaii with him like the first couple times, and I remember just being like blown away. He's like paddling out to pipe. I'm like, I'm not paddling out to pipe right now. But then sure enough, like a week later, you're like, okay, I guess I'm paddling out. That's just kind of like what you do. And like Tazzy was at the time was on Quicksilver as well. And Tazzy was only like, at the time it seemed like he was a lot older than me, but it was only probably 4 or 5 years. I don't know, something exactly, but something like that. And he was like pulling into closeouts at backdoor, like dry reef 10-foot closeouts. And I was just like, what? You want me to do that? Like, no way. Like Tazzy was always way more reckless than Pete. He was just like going for it at the time. He was young and just charging. But yeah, like that was pretty cool. Like going to Hawaii and getting to stay like at the Quick House with Pete the whole time. And then that next summer, I did my first trip to Puerto with Peter, and that was kind of like, I mean, that kind of just is something that I still pretty much do every year, is like go to Puerto. I love that place. It's been like just a place that I love so much, and the relationship with the place has lasted so long. But it's like Pete was going to Puerto at the time, brought me along with him. We got to spend, I don't know how long we were there the first trip, but I did 2 trips to Puerto with Pete. I remember John Mel was 3 years old at the time. So, and that's where he learned to surf. Like John learned how to surf in Puerto on one of those trips. And it was pretty cool. Like it was, yeah, pretty insane. And Pete was like so tapped in at the time and just getting like the sickest waves out there. So to just like be there looking up to him, you're like, okay, like that's the goal.
Yeah, and what a cool guy to have on your side and to be kind of like, tagging along with, and especially in a place like Hawaii. Like my first real trip where I was staying at the Body Glove House, Pete picked me up from the airport, and I didn't really surf with him too much on that trip, but I remember like me and Bud like got invited over to Poncho Sullivan's house for like a barbecue, and Pete was there and all the older guys, and like me and Bud and like Ian Walsh, we were all kind of like trying to like sneak beers and like lurk around Poncho's house. And then all these guys, we would walk into the kitchen, and like there's Pete and Poncho and like all these like heavies I can't remember, but like they're eating like steak, and like they just looked like the gnarliest, like manliest dudes. And I just remember just being like kind of like tripped out on how tapped in he was in Hawaii at that time, especially, and just, he was like one of the gnarly guys there. And
For sure.
so, I mean, it's pretty cool, like to have that experience where you're able to kind of like tag along and be exposed to that world.
Yeah, no, 100%. Pete's such a good dude, and like, it's pretty rad that he's still pushing it today. Like, he's what, almost late 50s now, and like still doing some of the best surfing in his life, even in small surf. Like, he's this is actually a funny one. So some drum told me in the water, like, oh, you got to make a Get Rad 4 because like Peter Mel surfs better now than he did when you made Get Rad. I'm like, wait, what? I was thinking about it. I was like, he is right there for sure. Like, it's his surfing is different, but it's not worse.
Yeah. Well, and then just tack on, 20 years of more experience in the bowl at Mavs, and he's like the fucking king of the peak there now.
For
And
sure.
so it's like he's going to have all that experience. And yeah, we, get him out at maybe some little secret reef breaks on the west side or get him out to here at Sewer Peak, and he's going to still just flare up and pack barrels and do big fucking hell carves. And it's pretty inspiring.
It really is to like, yeah, see him still ripping, when he's getting closer to 6 years old is pretty sick.
And I think too, like just by being positioned at where he's at in his career and being that it's kind of coincided with John being at the top of his game now, it's really prolonged his his efforts to stay relevant in that mix. Because
100%. I think like when John started surfing Mavericks, I think his first year surfing out there was like 2016, and Pete was almost like getting back into it at the time because he had like a brief stint working for Quicksilver down in Southern California, and then he came back up, and it was almost like, oh, like I can show John the ropes now, and he was just like straight back into it. And I remember the day that John's first session happened, I believe was like February 4th, 2016, which was like one of the craziest Mavericks days I've ever seen. And it was like straight offshore wind all day long and bombing. And like Pete got like two of the best waves that day. And that was like when John was like way on the shoulder and like chipped into a couple waves for the first time. But he was, getting to see Pete like just pushing it in the bowl and getting crazy waves. And now John's doing that and going left, and like it's pretty rad.
Yeah, to see where John's come at in his career, I know that he's had a lot of close calls with getting called up to the Challenger Series and, little bursts of success here and there and so close, but like just what he's doing on a daily basis, like seeing him out at Sewer Peak, like his surfing is so gnarly, and he's just sits always in the right spot, sends the most spray at backside out of anyone out there and just consistently putting it out there. And, it's going to be cool to see where he takes his surfing, but, he's already there in my mind.
Yeah. John is like, John's also just epic dude and ripping so hard. And like, he can do it all just like his dad did. From 2 foot to 20 foot, he can surf anything. So pretty sick to see John like following in his dad's footsteps in a sense, and like doing it goofy foot instead of regular foot too. So now you got him going left at Mavs and like pretty rad stuff.
And yeah, being such close family friends, and you're going to be one of the first people who they tap to come film missions up there. And it seems like over the past 10 years or so, you've been able to really document all the big moments out there for those guys.
For sure. And hopefully this coming year, there's some more good, like, I don't know, I feel like for a few years there was so many good paddle days at Mavericks, like starting with that day I was referencing of 2016, like that was like one of the best paddle days ever. And then we had another day the previous year, the year right after, 1 year after that or something. Like another day that was super offshore, maybe not quite as big, but just like as clean as it gets and huge. And like more recently, there's been a couple years where Mavs like didn't really have that good of a day until we had those two giant swells that were kind of like slightly south wind, so they're tow days, which is cool and like it's super rad. But I would love to see like another one of those really big paddle days. Like you always get some like smaller Mavs paddle days, but it's not every year you get like a huge clean paddle day. And hopefully this year will be the year where we see that happen, 2-3 times plus.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Mabs because we had a couple of sessions going up there, trying to catch a couple waves out there, and just nothing real like proper days or anything like that. But that's another thing growing up in Santa Cruz where you got guys like Tazzy going out there at age 15 and fucking packing 30 footers on his first session or whatever. And so we're kind of like, oh, that's what those guys are doing. Like when they're 20 they start surfing Mavs. And was there a point where you kind of like realize that, wow, like this is a beast that's not necessarily something that I really want too much to do with?
For sure. Like I remember, yeah, kind of starting to surf out there, and it's just like such a different, like just the deep water big wave is so different than like a Puerto Escondido. Like I love and have always loved surfing like big Puerto because it's just like you're trying to get tubed and it's not as tall but still super heavy. I don't know. There's something about deep water that has always like scared me more. Just about like how deep you can get pushed down and like how gnarly it is. And like, I don't know. It's funny though because yeah, I had like a few years where I was like trying to surf out there. I never like I still don't feel like I've ever gotten like a real Mavs wave. Like I've gotten waves, but like not in the bowl, you know? So it's funny because I'd still like to get like a good wave in the bowl at Mavs. Like I surfed it a couple times last year and like there was one I probably could have gone on and like last second didn't go and I was like pretty bummed. It's funny though, it's changed a lot since like being out there first. There was not really skis out there and there was definitely no like vests. And now having that stuff, you have so many people out there. But like I don't want to be depending on that stuff at all. Like I only want to do it if I know that I can do it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely changed. Like there's a lot of people out there. It's way harder to get waves. And there's a lot of people going for it for sure.
And what about filming Mavs? Like, have you had any close calls, like on a ski, or been where you're like just going out there to bag clips where you felt like, holy shit, like this, like got real scared, like?
I mean, generally, like the channel out there is so deep that you're pretty safe if you're like, on the ski or something like that. So usually not, but there has been a couple days like that are the biggest days I've ever seen out there where it feels totally different. Like the most recent day was the day Aloe got his giant wave, which was December 27th or something like that of I don't even know what year it was now, but 2 years ago. It was like that day and there's been like 2 other days besides that day where it has like a total different feeling where you're sitting in the channel and looking out going, that's going to close out the channel. And like it almost does, but then the channel's just so deep it doesn't close out. But the way it's coming in, it's crazy. And like that day too, I swear it was too big for Mavericks. Like people are like, oh, Mavericks gets as big as it can get, but that day was too big for Mavericks. Like there was a bunch of sets that broke so far out past the bowl that they weren't even good. There was just like they were out past the bowl. They weren't like getting steep. You know what I mean? So it was like pretty crazy to see like, will we ever see a day that big again? It's funny because so many people are like, we'll never see a day that big again. But I feel like every year the waves are almost getting like bigger and crazier. And like, I feel like we will see a day like that again or bigger. And it could happen like this year, especially people are talking El Nino and like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but like regardless if it's El Nino or not, it could happen any winter.
Definitely.
And like they always say, people say La Nina is not good, but like La Nina, we had a La Nina one year where Mavs had like a bunch of epic days, like that was, I think 2020 or something like that. And like there was that December 8th day where Peter got like a couple waves way outside the bowl and Twiggy had like a couple crazy wipeouts and like I think his wipeout was the next swell after that. We had 2 swells that year though that were giant and clean. And like I don't think it's really happened like that for a good paddle day since then.
Yeah, and how about like the emotions and the energy when you're on a day like that? Like talk about the adrenaline, even just being behind the camera, like that day, that huge day. Like one guy paddled, right? Chase LaRue, is that?
Chase Larue did paddle that day. He was, I think, the only guy who paddled, and like he got a wave too. It was pretty sick. Yeah,
Did he get smoked on
I
that
think he
thing?
was riding. No, I think he made it. He was riding like an 11-foot board. He was sitting, obviously, kind of way over from to where the tow teams were, but like his wave was proper. That was pretty badass to just like paddle out there on your. I think he even paddled out from the beach. Like didn't get it right on a boat. I'm not sure, but I think he paddled out from the beach, caught that wave, and then paddled in, which is pretty gnarly.
Dude, how sick is that to be like kind of just the underground guy who he's not, tied in with the big photo team. He doesn't, like you said, he doesn't have a fucking ride out to but then to the peak, but just to, yeah, paddle out, knuckle up, and fucking go for it. Like he's probably got some screws loose.
Yeah, no, that was super badass. That was not like a. I can't even imagine just like, oh, it's like that day was so bumpy too. And it's funny because that day actually wasn't in the morning. It wasn't nearly as big as it got. It was almost like there was a swell a couple days before it or the day before that was kind of like fading out, and the new swell was just starting. And like, but it was already south wind and bumpy, and I actually got to tow a few waves that morning. Someone threw me the rope and was like, get a couple waves. So I towed a few waves, and it was like the chops on those waves were unexplainable because the angle you're filming, you're looking into the wave and the bump is going the same way, so you don't really see it. But when you're like riding against that, like the amount of impact, then like endurance that it takes to like hold your board down through that is crazy. So like I wouldn't have even known how difficult it was to just like ride down the face of a wave out there had I not got the chance to do it a couple times. And then that gave you like a whole nother level of respect once these guys were riding like 80-foot plus waves. Then like you can see if you look closely, their boards are just like, and they're weighed down with like 10-pound, 20-pound weights.
Yeah, what do you think about the phenomenon of all this water safety out there? So many guys, you've got the power lines guy, like guys triangulating from the cliff, from the boat, from a ski, and all kind of keeping an eye on everybody. You've got the pull vests where you can kind of basically pop up from savage wipeout. And how has that changed the crowd out there, and maybe has it brought in some more like safety concerns with maybe guys being out of their depth because of all this safety stuff that's going on?
For sure. I mean, yeah, it's gotten plenty of guys, I think, that, are like, oh, I can do that. Like, you got a vest you can pull and a jet ski to save you. But you better not, like, be planning on just having someone save you if you didn't bring your own ski out there, Like, you might get saved, but you might not. I don't know. And I think you have to be ready. And, like, your vest could always fail, too, So it's like, it's good to an extent, but it's funny because I was just working on a project. I was down in Chile shooting a Patagonia project on their new PSI vest, which is the personal surf inflation, I think it stands for, or something like that. And that's the inflate vest. They're coming out with a second version of it. And I was down in Chile with Ramon Navarro, Greg Long, and Cole Christensen. And like just doing a bunch of, they did like a seminar on the vest and all kinds of things. And like Greg actually told us the story of when he was at Cortez Bank and had like that crazy wipeout. He went to pull his vest and it just didn't go. That was obviously the first version. It was a Billabong one and it didn't inflate. So like imagine if you're down there and then you're like, I have to pull my vest, and that's like your savior, and then you go to pull it and it doesn't go. Like, where does your head go after that? So you have to know that like it's only so good. Like it's, I don't know, you can't depend on it. You know what I mean? And like the same thing is like if you get knocked out or something, it's not going to pull itself. So it's definitely still very extreme.
Yeah, safety is an illusion in those circumstances.
For sure.
But, thankfully there's these technologies coming out. Is there anything that you think that could revolutionize big wave surfing, like the pole vest that hasn't come out, and what could you think it could be? Because I remember at one point, like I was talking with Pete, and this was like, before the pole vest even came out, and I was talking with him. I was like, could there be like a pole strap, like connected to booties, where your booties would like fan out and turn into like fins, like, and then you can use that to like propel your way up. Like, what do you think? Is there anything in your mind that could?
Well, I remember like guys used to paddle out to Big Puerto with like one fin in their back of their shorts, strapped to them somehow. So if they got like no leash on and if they had to swim out of there, they had a fin to do it. So like, I don't know. I mean, you could go so many different ways of like upping safety. I don't know if it would actually help, but like, I'm sure we'll probably see it go to like GPSs so you can actually find the guy, know where he's at. Like, what if someone's, like everything's so technical now. It's like, what if they add the tech into these vests and then it's showing you exactly where they are? Because like when there's that much whitewash, you can't just like find someone. It takes a lot just to see them. Or what if they're stuck on the bottom? I don't know how that would show you that, but I'm sure there could be a way. But then part of me also is like, I wonder if at some point there will be like a younger dude or something who comes out and is like, I'm not going to wear that. Like, I'm going to do it without it. Almost like rock climbing. Like you have Alex Honnold, like free soloing stuff. Like, what if it goes that way?
Well, that's the only way it could go with these guys who are just at the top extreme. Like, that's just, a safety precaution that's going to make their accomplishment look a little bit less if they're, but I mean,
I don't know. It's hard to say now because I think like it's almost looked at kind of reckless now if you paddle out without a vest on a really big day at least. Or at least like pretty much everyone's got like impact on. You know what I mean? And most people have impact plus flotation.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it kind of makes me think of like Puerto, and just, Puerto's the gnarliest place. You're mentioning it, waves with barrels the size of Mack trucks and breaking right in shallow water, so close to the beach. And you've got guys, over the years who just, like, it's like the underground dudes who just go out there and make the biggest impression on me. Like, God, what was that guy's name? The goofy foot dude.
Crazy Will Dillon.
Yeah.
Like, a savage.
Like, dude, that guy would just paddle out on days that nobody wanted nothing to do with. No leash.
No leash, no vest.
Nothing,
yeah.
So, I mean, is that guy still out there and giving it a day?
He's down there. He lives down there, but he's not really surfing.
Okay. Because I'm sure, even at some point when that guy was going for it, they probably had safety stuff that he just, didn't even, like, get involved in.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, it's been a while now where, like, Big Puerto people are wearing impact vests, but now guys are wearing the inflation vests out there. And I was actually really curious. I was like, why are they wearing inflation? Like, it doesn't make sense to me because it's not that deep. But I actually asked Greg, and he was like, oh, like, because he pulled the vest in Puerto a couple times this year. And the reason for that, which I guess I should have thought of this, but my head didn't even go there. I was like, it's not that deep. Like, why do you need the inflation? Usually you just kick off the sand or something. He said this because in Puerto you have such bad rip currents. Like, a lot of times you get pounded and you're going out to sea the whole time. Or you're just staying in the same spot. And the waves are just like right on your head every time. You're going, if any way, like in the same spot or out. And Greg said, the second you pull that vest, you're going towards the beach. Like, any wave that hits you is going to take you towards the beach. So pretty much if you pull and there's a set behind you, like, you're going to end up in the sand. So that's why they're using inflation now in Puerto, is to get to the beach faster.
Wow. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
But that's not the first place that your mind goes, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, so how about, like, the past few years at Puerto? Have you gotten some pretty nuts waves? Like, did you go down with Austin this last time, or was he down there?
Austin's still down there now. I'm jealous. But yeah, we were just down there, and it was pumping. And Puerto's the craziest place because, like, even on, like, a relatively average day, you could still get the best wave of your life. Or, like, a big day, but not necessarily a good day. Like sometimes you'll have like a long period day where there's tons of closeouts, but then like all of a sudden there's still one of the craziest waves you've ever seen. You're just like, what? So there was, yeah, just like that. There was tons of days where like wave of your life could have gone down. It was pretty epic.
And you tried to get down there every season, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Sick. And you have a place where you stay at the same place that you stay at. Hadn't you kind of been like loosely affiliated with that the place where the Longs always stay at there by the Far Bar, right?
Yeah, Casa Dan. Stayed there a lot over the years. Did stay there this year, but not every trip. But we always kind of stay right around that zone for sure.
Cool. And what is it about Mexico that, has attracted you year after year?
Well, for one, the waves, and for two, the people, and then the food and just the vibe. Like Mexican culture in general is like so welcoming and warm and hospitable. Like obviously I've driven the entire west coast of Mexico in search of surf and camped the entire way. And like one thing, like my takeaway from that was like if you're somewhere in America and you don't speak the language, like imagine being here, like driving through camping and like you don't speak the language and like you're totally different from all these people and like you kind of need like a place to stay and some food to eat and you're in the middle of nowhere with no hotels. Imagine like knocking on someone's door and asking them like, can I stay at your house? They'd look at you like you're crazy. Like no way they're going to let you for the most part, right? Whereas like in Mexico, I feel like if we ever got into that situation, like someone would just take you in, cook you dinner, and like we actually had that happen, which is pretty rad. It's like pretty amazing how trusting and like people are so scared of Mexico, but like a lot of times you pull over on the side of the road in Mexico and like people instantly just assume like, oh, they need help. I'm going to pull over and see if I can help them fix their tire or whatnot. Like usually here, you see guys on the side of the road, you just go right past them. So the culture is definitely different and like more hospitable and warm.
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about, you getting involved with filming and how your career kind of progressed and where it's at now, at least with like the guys who you shoot with locally. What does that look like? Do you have like a crew of dudes who you kind of like play phone tag with? I know that you're kind of really active with like guys like Waggy and stuff like that, but how does that look like your like average, day here in Santa Cruz?
I mean, I would say there was like a bunch of years where I was really hardly shooting here at all and like just pretty much just surfing and still like most of the time here I'm surfing, but I have been shooting at home again. I mean, I guess I was always shooting like Mavs and things like that, but like your day-to-day surfs at the lane and sewers, I was like a period of time where I wasn't shooting any of that, and I actually have been again. And yeah, I think it'd be fun to do something like on a local level, just like for fun, just like as kind of like a love letter to Santa Cruz, just kind of to give back or whatever you want to call it, to get everyone psyched. I think that like there's such a cool generation of surfers now and such like a big span of everyone from like a Peter Mel down to like an Isla Hardy. You know what I mean? And I think that like the girls are really pushing it now, which is super rad to see. Like there's always been good female surfers out of Santa Cruz, going back to like Kim Mayer was incredible. But now there's like so many female surfers that are killing it, which is pretty cool to see. And I don't think we've had like a group this big yet. And I'm excited to see where they take it. And like, yeah, pretty sick.
And they're just really kind of backing each other in that same way that guys like Pete and Flea and Barney we're all in that same kind of little age range. And now you got like Rivy, KK, Kira, and Isla, those are the main standouts. There's a lot of other girls who are coming up as well too. So it's kind of like they're uniquely positioned in a place where they could really bring their level up as a group.
Totally. I don't think Santa Cruz has seen a female on the CT yet, so that'd be pretty cool to see. I feel like that could happen with this generation of surfers too, so that will be exciting to watch. But it's like crazy the level of surfing you see on the female side of things now. It's like I almost enjoy watching the female like CT contest more than the males, because it's almost like anything could happen more sense, or like I don't know. They're just like newer and fresher faces and like pushing it harder every event.
Yeah, as far as like progression goes, the females are progressing at a faster pace.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because the guys kind of
100%.
hit this glass ceiling where it's like, what else can you do? Medina's doing backflips, Iago's doing stalefish corked out 540s and stuff. And
For sure. But I do think, like, at the same time, someone did tell me that recently. Like, oh, surfing's, like, hit this, like, cap where it's, like, not progressing anymore, which kind of bummed me out. I was like, no. Like, I feel like something has to change. And, like, the thing that comes to mind would be, like, surfboard design, because it's been basically the same for, like, 30 years? Like, people have been riding. If you look back at, like, AI when he was winning world titles, like his surfboard was essentially the same as, what Griffin Colapinto's riding today. It was probably a little bit more rockered out and a little bit narrower, maybe a few inches longer, but like same fin design, same bottom, like pretty close, like the changes in surfboard design haven't been anything major. So I think that like at some point there's got to be a breakthrough in surfboard design that allows people to draw different lines, or obviously like there's a lot that could still be done in the air, but like on the face of the wave it seems like guys are at like the top of what could be done, but like maybe not. Maybe someone's going to unlock a different type of surfboard design that is like allows you to draw different lines or go faster or whatever that is. But
yeah, we
it's
might already
funny
be
because
there.
now, well, I feel like surfboard design is like everyone's looking at like a change as like going backwards, like, oh, it's like a retro board. Like you're like, oh, you're riding like an ASIM, that's like a retro board, but like ASIM's not really retro. Like it makes sense to me to ride an asymmetrical board because you don't surf exactly the same off your toe side as you do your heel side. So like, why would your surfboard be symmetrical? I don't know. And like I've ridden some asymmetricals and they have like a crazy feeling a lot, I think, because the offset fins. You have like this crazy sensation when you do a wrap where it just like wants to turn almost harder. So like that could be something. And then like Pete actually has been trying to mess around with flex a bunch. He's been like trying to get like weird different flex patterns going by putting different kind of stringers in his boards and like ending the stringers at certain places. And like, I don't know, there's so many different ways that surfboard design could change. We'll see if it does.
Yeah, I think too there's got to be some kind of like give on the part of the judges about, being willing to embrace guys riding different boards, because I've seen a clip of Jack Robinson in a wave pool, and like the little Instagram like caption read that like some fan gave him a board and it was like a shaper, and he said, hey, I want you to try this board, and Jack was like, I guess had some like downtime where he had no responsibility. He was at a pool, and it showed a clip of him surfing kind of like it looked like kind of like a pared down mid length or something. It was probably a real light board. But dude, he fucking threw the thing into these crazy carves, and it looked so sick to me. And I was willing to be like, hey, in my mind, the carves that he was doing, the way he was holding the rail, it looked sicker than riding the toothpicks that they're riding in the CT.
Dude, you don't gotta tell me. I've loved riding mid lengths. Like
Yeah.
I've had a couple mid lengths, and like for out here at Pleasure Point, I mean most of like South Swell, I'm probably gonna ride a shortboard, but North Swell, usually gonna ride a mid length. It's just like you go out, you're gonna have fun rather than just be like trying to go forward. And you have that longer rail line, like you said, you can just like get the raddest feeling carves and things and just like get way more speed going without forcing it. Obviously, no, it's not more like radical, but it can be a lot more fun.
Yeah. And I think too, like it really takes like slowing down in your mind and being willing to, forego sections that, if like on my mid length, I'll get these sick carbs and feel like so much flow and speed and power. And then this section comes up where it's like a steep lip. And I'm like, my mind's going like, oh, fucking hammer that thing 12 o'clock. And I go up and the turning radius is just so like not tight. And then I just go up and like I end up kooking it because I was trying to fit a progressive move in on a mid-length, and so it takes like a lot of like patience, and you have to like settle for throwing those tricks to the side for that session at least.
Yeah, but it's like super enjoyable when the waves are waist high to like have some speed going and like be catching a bunch of waves, and it's just fun. And I get like so much. It's so funny how much it like bums people out when you paddle out a mid length. They're like, why are you riding that dad board?" I'm like, "Why? Because I'm having twice as much fun as you. Like, look how many more waves I'm catching." So like, I don't know. I've been having fun riding boards like that. I'm not gonna stop. And then it's so funny because there's like older guys that'd be like, "Oh, kill me if I ever start riding a mid length." I'm like, "You should probably be riding a mid length. Like,
Yeah,
you'd probably be surfing better, having more fun, catching more waves."
totally.
But yeah, I mean, there's a time and place for it. But like, I don't know, you get such a different feeling from every different surfboard. Like, I've been riding a bunch of twin fins and having so much fun. So it's just like, once you start, like, something starts feeling a little old, change it up and then go back. Because once you start riding a twin, you're having a bunch of fun on that, and then the right day comes for a thruster, and then you're like, "Oh, the thruster feels so good."
Yeah, well, it's going to take more guys like, Josh Kerr putting a jersey on and choosing a twin fin and showing the judges, like, not only can I keep up, but look at what I'm doing.
For sure, but I think, like you were saying, the judges have to accept that to a point too, because like I feel like if you ride a round nose board, you almost get less points in an event. It's like they want to see you with a pointy nose and 3 fins. So they're almost like boxing the criteria into the certain surfboard, because like I think to this point that's like the most radical surfboard we've seen. But then again, you have like Nathan Fletcher and Stretch making these boards with chopped noses that aren't like the prettiest looking surfboards, but like some of the airs and things you've seen are like undeniably gnarly.
Yeah, I remember.
So like if you ride a 5150 on tour, like I'd assume you're not going to see that, because you're not going to see someone like ride a square nose and expect to get high points, but like someone could ride one of those and surf the best and win an event if the judges allowed them to, in my opinion.
Definitely. I remember this this Volcom contest at the point. I had gone to Japan, I think, the year before, and I got this like 5'6" kind of like round nose keel fin twinny, and it was like super wide and shit. And this day at the point is, like knee high, and it was basically like high tide gnomes, like farthest inside that you could be, and guys were just having such a hard time. And I'm like, oh, I'll just ride this board because I could ride anything and like still do pretty sick turns on it and stuff. And I went out in my heat, and like, I mean, fuck, I didn't see any footage. I just watched the guys in my heat. I got some waves that like doubled up, and I was doing some turns, and like, I'm like, dude, I for sure made it. And like, I came in and I got 4th, and I was like, dude, what the, like, come on, dude. Like, it was like it was like I was cheating in their eyes, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one.
But your brother, he took out like a mid length,
He did. So my brother was coming off a knee injury. He's kind of just getting back to like, I'd say, full. We were in Cloudbreak a year ago now, even a little bit over a year ago, and he tore his ACL. It was a bummer because he was taking off. He had like a perfect line in the barrel, and this guy was paddling up the face on a gun at 8.6, and he ditched it. And my brother had nowhere to go but to straighten out, and the lip landed on him, and his ACL tore. So it's been like a long recovery for him. He was out of the water for a long time, and like he's such a big dude, I assume it's harder to even come out of that, just like so much weight and whatnot. But he saw me riding mid-lengths and was like, "I'm going to get a mid-length," and got a mid-length. And it's funny though, because his approach on the mid-length, I think partly because he's so big and powerful, is like pretty radical still. He's able to like put those boards in pretty steep parts of the waves and like hit the lip pretty hard, especially backside. So there was a couple board riders events where he rode the midi. It was pretty classic, and guys were telling him to ride it. They're like, "Oh, ride that board! Like you surf that board good."
Yeah, in a local event like that, it's just like we need just somebody who can get out there and put up, some points for the team. And it's not like it has to be a 10 or anything, but if the board's gonna get him to do like 4 pretty sweet carves, and he's going to get like a 5 or a 6, maybe higher if he's, really putting it together. But I don't see any reason why not.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be open-minded, I think. And yeah, hopefully the judges start maybe getting a little bit more open-minded. But, we'll see how that goes. But are you pretty stoked? Like, are you following the world tour? Because I like to watch the event still. It's
For
still
sure.
fun for me. Some people are like, I don't watch that crap. And it's like, I get stoked on it.
Oh, for sure. I watch the events, like especially closer to the finals. Like I'm psyched to watch. It's funny because like Nat hardly watches any surf events at all. I'll be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm not watching the event." I'm like, "What? Let's watch this." He's all psyched to watch like UFC fights, and I'm like, "What? Let's watch like the finals at Chopes. Like it's firing." He's like, "Nah, rather watch UFC."
Well, I'm sure if that was like your day job, it's kind of one of those things you're like, oh, I don't want to like, watch this crap,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's such a competitive animal too. You'd think that he'd be still, drawing some froth off of that. Maybe he does. Maybe he's like secret, like closet, like
He probably
webcam,
does.
like watches the webcast. Yeah, we know what you're doing, Nat. But yeah, that's so. Yeah, let's just kind of talk a little bit more about your personal life. You've had a partner for a long time, Tessa Timmons,
Yeah.
and she's an unbelievable surfer, and you guys are like a great pair. How did you guys meet?
We're getting personal now. Tessa I met in the water a long time ago, surfing the point. She took off in front of me on a wave, and I was like, "Hey, like, who are you?" And went from there. And she like pretty quickly became like my favorite travel partner. And yeah, we've done like so much cool stuff together. She's always excited to go on a trip and like not scared to rough it or camp or stay in some sketchy little room in the middle of nowhere in Indo. Like she's excited to do that too. So it's pretty sick. Like Tessa's really awesome, and like you said, she's an amazing longboarder. She will ride a shortboard too, and she rides them real smooth and maybe not the most radical, but super smooth and stylish. And yeah, it's sick. Tessa's a legend.
She is, and she's got, like you said, a really good style, and she's from San Diego, right?
She's from New Mexico originally, and then she moved to San Diego and started surfing around there, and then came to UCSC, and then met me and never left.
And she's doing some like girls camp stuff that you've been involved in, right? You've been
Yeah,
helping out
yeah.
a little bit.
She's been doing like some surf retreats of kind of all levels. She did a few like in Indo the last couple years, and she's got a couple coming up in like Sri Lanka. She did one in Nicaragua, but then she's been doing local ones too, which is cool. She just the last couple days did like her kind of like advanced longboard camp with a couple like of the really good like young female surfers in town, like Addie, Isla's little sister, Addie Hardy. She's like an insane longboarder. So like super cool to see Tess kind of like helping out the next generation of female longboarders. And it's crazy now if you look out at the point and like see how many girls are surfing really good on longboards. It's cool to see. Because yeah, that's just like a whole nother side of surfing. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
It's funny because I feel like shortboarders like they'll look at longboard and be like, it's so easy, but like then you see them getting a longboard and they have no idea what they're doing. Like riding a longboard and looking good doing it is so hard. I feel like since I met Tess, I've been like, oh yeah, I could get good at that, and then I'm still not good at riding a longboard. Like I feel like I'm good until I see myself, and then I'm like, well, I'm like bad. It's just like you got to slow everything down, and like it's a totally different art, but it's like so much fun if you actually try to like ride a longboard well, because I feel like a lot of guys will just get on a longboard and try to like play around and do cockroaches and things like that, which is fine. That's totally fun. Like I'm down to do that too, but like if you actually try to like walk the nose and do like smooth stylish cutbacks and things, like it's super challenging.
Yeah, and just talking about like surfboard design. You mentioned just having a lot more fun trying out different shapes and stuff like that. Who are some of the local builders that you like to work with? We've got such a depth of amazing craftsmen here in town, and who's kind of been your go-to for just picking out kind of different boards?
I mean, I've ridden a lot of Colettas over the years, and I still do, both Kalu and Steve. Um, yeah, they both make incredible boards, and and I've also been riding some stretches. And stretch boards, I'd say, are a little different than like most boards, in a sense. You know, they look a little different, and they're sick boards. Had a couple really good like step up boards that I just had down in Puerto, and I just ordered another one. So yeah, but the list of shapers in Santa Cruz goes on and on, but there's not like a whole bunch of young shapers. There's a few coming up, but like I feel like that's yeah, like the most of the shapers are getting pretty old now, you know?
Definitely. Well, the Coletta family is really cool, like multi-generational shaping family, and Steve's down in Mexico, right? Do you ever get to go see him down there at all?
Yeah. Pretty much almost every trip down there I'll stop by and say hi and hang out with Steve and have dinner or even go for a surf if he's up to it. Like Steve's so inspiring. He's such a cool guy, and he's like I think 79 now and still surfing. Obviously it's getting harder for him and every year. He's had a lot of injuries and things that will keep him out of the water, but when he's feeling up to it, it's so special to surf with the guy, and he's such a good surfer still. It's pretty epic.
Yeah, could you see yourself at some point like pulling the pin on Santa Cruz and moving down somewhere tropical, like to spend your golden years?
For sure.
And I mean, Mexico obviously has a special place in your heart. Is that somewhere you could see putting down roots?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's tons of places though. Um, could be in the future.
Yeah, and for many different reasons, people make these decisions to go to different places. But the tropics are the warmth, and as cold water surfers, it feels like myself. I had both my hips replaced. Munster had one. He had his knee done. Rhodey had his hips replaced. There seems to be something about cold water surfing that I don't know if it's the tightness of the muscles or the joints or anything like that, but it can kind of like wear down surfers. Is there any issues with your body as you age, or have you been pretty lucky in that regard?
No, for sure. I feel like I've had issues with my body like since I was young though. You know, there's always been not always, but like a lot of times where something's been bothering me. Even from the time I was like 19 years old, like I at that time I had this like crazy like inflammation in my hands and my wrists and shoulders that like I had no idea what it was from, and went and saw so many like doctors and specialists, and like I don't know, like you might have arthritis but you might not, like we don't really know. And like luckily that went away, and then like but yeah, then there's always a lot of times been something like my knees bothered me a bit over the year. I've sprained both my knees surfing, and the right knee tends to like, especially in cold water, actually it's like real sore. So like a lot of times I just don't want to push into that knee. And then yeah, there's the low back obviously go out sometimes. So just trying to like stay flexible and stay fit as you age is super important, and like something that I wish I would have started doing earlier, just like doing, I mean, I know you're way into the yoga and all that stuff. I've been like super into foundation training and things like that, just trying to like feel good. But I do notice for sure that my body feels better in the warm. So if I were to get out here and go somewhere, it would be somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, part of me, like you can obviously go somewhere cold and find a lot less crowded place and like waves and things like that, but I think my body responds better to the warmth.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Well, it's nice here, especially in the summer, and it starts warming up. But every like February, I just start going, "Fuck, bro! Like, what am I doing here? Get me out of here." But it's just something that we got to deal with,
Yeah.
and we take our trips when we can. Speaking of trips, a little bit more, and going into the other like realm of your careers, you're not just filming surfing, you're filming other things. You're going a whole variety of things. Like you even went and filmed some like gaming competition in Saudi Arabia. And tell me a little bit about balancing that type of work, and what are the positives about it, what are some of the negatives, and just also just mixing it up, not doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah, no, it's good to mix it up for sure. And the surf industry has notoriously been like really hard to make money in. People are like, oh yeah, like we only have this much budget, or like we'll give you like this much product. You're like, no, like I gotta, pay rent and eat too, you know? So like the surf industry can be super difficult to make money in. And outside of that seems a lot of times a little more fair. So I've done all kinds of things outside of surfing and do all the time, like equally or more than I do surf stuff, actually. You were talking about the gaming thing. So yeah, I shot this. I mean, I feel like every time you get a phone call for work, like there's only a certain amount of times you can say no until they stop calling, right? So like you pretty much have to say yes sometimes. And that was one that I super questioned. I got a call from my friend who I'd worked on a bunch of really cool projects with. I'd shot a bunch of like UFC fighters and like profiles for UFC and like stuff like that with him. And he called me and was like, hey, I've got this project. It's in Saudi Arabia. We're going to be there for 2 months straight shooting professional esports players. And I was like, what? What are esports? And he's like, esports are video games. And I was like, oh no, that's horrible, right? Then he kept like, so what's up? Are you coming? Are you coming? And this was a couple years ago. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like I'm looking at the forecast, like, oh, Puerto's going to be good. I think I was actually in Mex when he called at first. And I was like, oh no. And then I ended up going, and spending a couple months there. And it's actually a super cool project. So it's like an Amazon Prime series called Level Up that is on professional esports players. And we went and kind of covered the competition in Saudi, but what we did more so there was like meet and pick out the players that we wanted to focus on. And then we'd travel to their hometown. So we did a bunch of traveling after that to like, so I've done 2 seasons of that show now. So last year after the Saudi stint, we went to South Korea, we went to Indonesia, we went to the Philippines, went to like Middle America, stuff here in San Francisco, like all kinds of different places shooting these guys. They come from, and women, they come from all over the entire world. And it's actually like a super cool show. It's just like a human interest piece on these people. And it's like you could do a surf show essentially exactly the same way. And like people think like, oh, it's video games. They must all be these dorky dudes who just sit inside all day and game and don't do anything else. And you definitely get that. But then you get people that are completely the opposite, So like you have such a wide variety of people from anywhere in the world who are totally different. And like the show focuses on, different people and their quest for gaming, just like someone's quest for surfing, you know what I mean? It's like, and being at the competitions is funny. It's really similar to being at a surf competition. They have trainers and coaches. They're doing like physical activities, throwing balls back and forth. It is funny when you see them doing like thumb exercises, getting their thumbs warmed up. It's pretty classic, but like there's like a crazy level of like, I don't know, brain function and that goes into like a lot of these games or strategy games and like crazy things. So like part of me is like, wow, that's kind of nuts, like, I mean, I could never do it. It doesn't even interest me, but like you can appreciate it in a sense, you know what I mean? Like I think I learned, or at least like saw why they'd get into it. And then also like a lot of these people come from like really poor backgrounds and they'll learn to play on their phones and get really good on their phones. And then they, like tons of the stories we did focused on people from like say the Philippines who are like supporting their entire family and have taken them from like very low class to like upper class citizens. It's cool. That's cool to see. But yeah, I've done 2 seasons of that show. I would be over there for a 3rd time right now if there wasn't a war. But since the Middle East is not the safest place in the world right now, this year I'm not there, which has been good and bad. But yeah.
What about like immersion? Because, as a a filmmaker in the surf world, it's like you can really bond with the guys you're shooting with. You know, you can maybe jump out there for like a session every once in a while, and it's like more rooted in your background and stuff. Like on any of these trips, would you like maybe pick up a video game controller and play with the dude, like to get
Oh,
to know him?
I have for sure. I'm not the best at video games, but yeah, I've definitely picked it up and tried it. It's not like my favorite thing in the world, but yeah, it's fun enough. It's something to do. I mean, I grew up playing like Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, but that was about the only video game, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Um, yeah, it's just a totally different activity,
Definitely.
but it is almost more similar to like editing a video. Like you're getting in there and get like they get so into these games and like yeah, it's like editing a film. It's cool how like it will totally bring you to that present moment, just like surfing, because the only thing you're thinking about is like what to put next and where it goes, how to best tell the story. So it's just like another thing to keep yourself occupied.
Definitely. And it's you're getting you're working that type of part of your brain that engages in that flow state, you know. So I'm sure you could bond on that with those guys. What about like any other like other cool things that you've been involved in that art in the surf world per se?
Oh, I mean, there's been so much stuff. Just like last month or something, I shot something in Portland, Oregon with Frank Armisen. That was super cool. He's like a comedian and a musician, and that was rad. Like, I did a documentary on the World Series when the Yankees and Dodgers were playing each other a couple years ago. That was super fun. Like traveling back and forth from LA to New York and like being a part of just like all the crazy energy in the stadium. So like there's been all kinds of stuff out of the surf world. Obviously done a ton of UFC. I got into that because Luke Rockhold was shooting UFC or like, you know, competing in UFC at the time, and I shot a few things for him, and then next thing I knew I was shooting all kinds of UFC profiles, just like that snowball thing. But I feel like with the UFC thing, I like learned this whole other side or like practice it at least, and then brought that into the surf world at the time because that was a while ago now. And then I came back into the surf world and was like, I started those brainwork series that I've done where you like kind of get into the day to day life and just like mind of these guys. And I feel like, yeah, like a lot of that I learned like the skills and ideas from, you know, working on UFC shows and things like that. So it's cool. Like you learn different things from all these things. Then you can, you know, you can learn from anyone. So it's pretty cool to like work with different people and expand your craft and bring it back to where you want it to live or don't.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. Like you mentioned, you know, possibly in the future doing something like on a more grassroots, like local level, like to bring back that atmosphere that we grew up with all these local surf movies, and you could kind of maybe do it in a different way where you're doing some more of these human interest stories. And I know that you've done some isolated things like Brainworks, and you know you did Tattletales. That was another a cool way to bring in the kind of narrative structure and personal experiences and stories. But I think it'd be rad if you know were able to put something together and put something out for the community and do like a premiere. And you know you've always done a really good job hosting those events at like the Rio and stuff like that. So I mean I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, I think it'll happen for sure. I'm not stopping. And like I think doing personal projects is like I don't know, like making films is something that I would do regardless of if it was my job or not. Like I'll always be working on a personal project. And like right now I do have a couple things going on that like I'm not really in a rush to get out, but I'll get them out there when the time's right. I've been working on a film with Stretch, the Shaper. That's been super fun to work on. He's got a interesting story and he's such a like unique character. And then yeah, like I said, doing something more surf focused, I think locally would be super fun because it's been a really long time since I've done something like that. And I feel like it's almost like a lot of my old surf videos didn't even exist online until like I don't know, a few years ago, I like put everything on YouTube, and it's like brought this resurgence of people like, what, Get Rad 4? And I was like, yeah, right. Like, I'm not doing that again. Like, no way. And then like, it's kind of grown. It'd be kind of sick. Like, it's just like a totally like similar but different thing going on in town now. And like, it would be super fun. So that is definitely something. I'm going to make something surf focused for sure in like locally in the next year and a half. Like, I could do something right now. I have enough footage for it for sure, but I feel like there's no rush, and like, might as well give it some time and let it go. And then I'd like to like tie it together, I don't know, in a way just like those old films, just like a tribute to kind of where I started and the town. And yeah, I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, there's probably like, shooting locally when it's not for like a big project, or maybe it's not with one of the guys you might be like relying on, maybe getting some like, clips maybe for their sponsors or something. There's like a lot of sacrifice in the moment that might feel hard to be like, oh, I'm going to go rock up to Sewers and film some Groms or something like that.
Sometimes, for sure. It depends though. It's like certain waves. Sewers is one of the waves where like I want to be out there. Like, I love Sewers. And I think if you like watch a lot of my old films, you'll see that it's like you don't see a lot of Sewers because I've been out surfing those sessions. But it depends. Like, I've definitely will shoot Sewers and do shoot Sewers, but a lot of times I'll be out there too. But yeah, like, there's such a rad new generation of kids, and the old generation still ripping too, that just to put it all together would be something fun. And like I said, I feel like the way has been getting better every year. And like just the last couple of days, we had the craziest hurricane swell, and you see like waves doing things you've never seen them doing before. It's pretty rad to like these same spots still be so excited about so many years later. And like, I really do think there's, yeah, just a lot of potential for crazy waves at, places we've seen, and then places also we haven't seen.
Yeah, like the freaking chunk broke off at the lane, and then a couple of days later you see Chachi getting like a stand-up pit on his soft top. Did you see that clip, dude?
No.
Dude, Chachi got freaking kegged, and it looked like it looked real slabby. Like, it looked
Chachi?
Yeah, something looked different. Like in the
Sick.
Yeah, it was pretty sick.
I know. Well, it's funny because I feel like a lot of people are like, "Oh, the waves used to be better. Like, everything sucks. Everything's negative." And I'm like, "What? Like, the waves are better now. Like, and they're getting better, I feel like." And like, "Oh, the lane, fell off. Like, the chunk of the cliff fell off. Now the lane's ruined." I'm like, "Or did it get better?" Like, I actually felt like the first chunk that fell off, like, I don't know when it was, a year or two ago, it gave the wave like this. I think for sure it made middle peak lefts have like a little bit better air section. It's always had that, but I felt like it sent like a little bit more whitewash towards that left. And like, you've seen guys like John and Sam Coffey like doing the craziest airs on middle peak left, and Nat, and like, it's pretty sick to see. Like, sometimes things change, they change better, like we could see, yeah, like you said, what if a chunk falls off and it turns into a slab? Like, there's different things that could happen, and like, not all change is bad. So
yeah, we just got to like stay open and receptive to change. And it's easy to be the guy being like, oh, it's fucking 1982, like, you seen that two I got at the river mouth, and
for
like, I'm not
sure.
surfing anymore. And it's got to be open to change,
For sure. And I mean, like, when you think back, you're only remembering like the best days you've ever seen. Like, so it's like, not remembering every single day you've ever seen these waves. You're just remembering like the best you've ever seen it.
Yeah,
But that's still happening. You know what I mean?
for sure. And it's only going to keep happening, and we just got to be open. And I'm looking forward to the future of, we've been friends our whole lives and surfing together, and here we are, we're cresting the top of the hill, and we're going to be able to be positioned to surf into our old age. And I'm definitely stoked to see what you've got in store in the future, and I'm just really stoked to see where you've brought your career, and that you're still getting out there and doing it. And I've had a really great time chatting with you on the podcast today, and I've been wanting to get you in here for a while, so I'm super stoked that you came in. And do you have any words of wisdom for the Groms out there?
Stay psyched. Stay positive.
Stay rad.
Stay rad. Get rad.
Definitely. All right, Boothie. Well, it's been a pleasure to chat, and we'll get you in here sometime in the future. Just to,
Yeah, Indy.
yeah, buddy. And this has been another episode of Split Peak Soup. We're part of the Santa Cruz Vibes podcast network. We also come out with magazines quarterly. So we got a summer issue coming out in a couple of weeks. So by the time this airs, it'll be out there on at all the cool places where you pick up Santa Cruz Vibes. So make sure to grab one of those. I'm pretty proud of a little piece I did on our good friend Sean Barron, passed away. Yeah, Barney's art. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And until next time, this has been the Split Peak Soup podcast, and we'll check you later.
Shoots.